Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, thank you, Representative Frank, for all of your work. I know where your heart is on this. I do appreciate it, but I do feel compelled to say to my colleagues that there's one voice that has been running through my head as we've been talking about this topic, and that is the voice of one of my former Travis County judges, Judge Scott McCown, a recognized expert on this issue, a recognized expert on state administration, school finance, and CPS systems in particular. When we talk about outsourcing, we do recognize that Tarrant County is doing something similar to this. And Judge McCown spoke against this bill and against this concept, and he is deeply embedded into what's happening in Tarrant County. So I don't pretend to be an expert on these issues, but I do listen to people who know more than I do. And I would like to read you a couple of items from Judge McCown's testimony, speaking and warning us against the passage of these types of measures. Everyone is frustrated with the years of problems at CPS, and if another way of doing business even remotely offers hope to children with families, many are ready to embrace it. However, misdiagnosing a problem and consequently prescribing the wrong medicine can kill the patient. Our problem is a lack of funding. CPS managers and workers are competent, caring, and hardworking. Properly funded, the CPS model of CPS employees works. The governor and legislature...
The House will come to order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The governor and legislature are moving to provide adequate funding. I do hope that we ultimately will do right in the larger scheme of things. But to quote Scott McCown, Judge Scott McCown, on balance, turning case management over to private contractors has not improved outcomes in other states. As well-meaning as others are around this bill, I am concerned that a vote for today is sending a strong message, and Texas is a leader on these types of issues. So I would ask you to consider that the man who has been embedded in the Tarrant County example that we have been talking about has warned us against this, and I don't think that what we're doing today will demonstrate to Judge Jack, who has said that our system is unconstitutional, that we're doing anything to make this system better and to make Texas more accountable. So I ask you to vote no with all due respect to my colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Howard, for what purpose?
Would the gentlelady yield?
Will the gentlelady yield?
Of course.
She yields.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Israel, for bringing that to our attention. So you're reminding us that there is a constitutional issue at play here, are you not?
Yes, I am. I'm not. I have not been on the State Affairs Committee, as you know, and I have been looking to my colleagues who have been putting a lot of work into this, but all I can remember is those horrible stories in the Dallas Morning News and in other outlets to demonstrate that Judge Jack called us out on the most serious issue that I think for many of us was our #1 issue. And not being a judge, I am concerned that we are not doing anything to demonstrate to Judge Jack that we are making this system better and stronger for our most fragile children in Texas.
So you're suggesting that as we're considering this legislation, we should think about what the impact might be on what's been shown to be ruled to be an unconstitutional system.
Correct.
And whether or not this is actually going to be addressing what has been indicated is wrong with the system and created the unconstitutional
yes, Representative Howard. I am very concerned that we are reacting without reacting in response to a judge who has said we are unconstitutional.
And though we don't know, obviously, what the outcome of our budget is going to be for the next biennium, we do know that the House did actually put more money into the CPS system, less than still some of us thought was needed, less than what the department itself said was necessary for them to have. What we're hearing, I guess you know, in the media indicates that we may not be getting the kind of budget that some of us in the House wanted in the first place. It may be less involved. So Are you suggesting, too, that part of what the issue here is a lack of funding, adequate funding and resources to whichever method we use to implement? If we don't have the resources, how can it be successful?
I agree. It's a huge variable. There's a big difference between this chamber and the other chamber on how we're going to address this problem. And I don't think that we should validate ourselves by voting for a bill to make us feel better when we haven't, in my mind, done something significant to really demonstrate that we heard Judge Jack and we want to do the right thing. And I say that not with pride or with any gratification, because I know that there are many of our colleagues who feel that this is something that we should be doing. I'm just concerned that doing it at this time and in this manner is not something that is well thought out, bearing in mind that we are unconstitutional and that we are not giving the resources that we need to the most pressing problem in Texas today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions.
Representative Dukes, for what purpose?
Will the gentlelady yield?
Will the gentlelady yield?
Yes, ma'am.
She yields.
Thank you. Representative Israel, you eloquently laid out the legal issues and the legal concerns of Judge Jack. Did you hear earlier in the discussions and the debate, the Representative Frank said that this was not done rapidly, but 12 years in the making?
I don't know that I heard 12 years exactly, but I know that there's a lot of work that's gone into it, and you certainly have put your career's work onto this topic in particular.
Well, those 12 years where this did not come forth, this began under Ann Heigelstein when she was executive director and George Bush was governor of Texas. There were studies done on foster care and adoption coming outside the agency. Mm-hmm. Were you aware the reason that it hadn't been done all of these years is that there haven't been any executive directors to push for it? They weren't crazy about it. Were you aware of that?
No, ma'am.
Were you aware that in the budget for the past 6 sessions, I worked with DFPS on their budget, and we never put it in the budget so that it wouldn't happen because executive directors had so much concern about it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, and I, of course, trust your thoughts on that.
And were you aware that many were very concerned because when HHC had the $892 million outsourced contract with Accenture, they got rid of all the employees and didn't have a skeleton staff when it failed a few years later. They learned their lesson.
Yeah, it's a sad description of use of state resources.
And repeatedly, we've heard the horror stories and the unsafe environments. And today it was said that the agency was broke, so this was going to fix it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But 95% of it is already done by these private entities, and it is in those instances where there has been a delay in looking after that kid, checking on that child, placing them appropriately, getting them the services, not by the state, but by that 95%. Did you know that?
No, ma'am.
And do you know that this will separate the state even further?
Yes,
even though it
that's
will
my concern
become
as well.
the guardian, and it will take a long time to go through the private network of papers before we learn about the safety of that child, right?
Correct. Yes.
Are you aware that there were children found underneath a house in San Antonio because of the delay in seeing them?
Yeah, we've had too many tragedies, Representative Dukes, and I don't know that we're being mindful of those tragedies on this day on the floor of the House.
Well, I will join you in voting no against this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.